Before this video begins, I would like to give a quick thank you to my Asban Team level patrons Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Doctor Who has a long and storied history, even set to celebrate its 60th year this coming November. Throughout these 60 years there have been so many interesting ideas and concepts introduced or teased without ever really being followed up on. I'm talking about things like the Chakri, the Valiard, and that kind of stuff. However, Doctor Who's most recent series introduced possibly the most interesting concept it has ever teased, that being an entire new universe for the character to explore. I've been thinking about this for a while now, especially with some of the rumoured plot elements for the 60th anniversary specials, and it got me wondering whether this second universe could have been properly explored or even used as a backdrop to an entire Doctor Who reboot. Was it a big missed opportunity? Should it have led to a reboot? Well, that's what I wanted to explore in today's video. So get ready to wade into unknown territory, because it's time to talk about possibly the biggest missed opportunity of Chibnall's Doctor Who.
We're not in the universe, Doctor.
So if you've been following my channel for a while now, you may know that over the last year and a half I've been showing my girlfriend Doctor Who for the very first time. We're all caught up now, but when we were watching through Flux I noticed the seeds of an idea that would have completely changed Doctor Who forever if Chibnall had chosen to pursue it. You see, Flux was a big series comprised of one huge 6-part story, and it delved a lot into the Doctor's hidden past as a member of the mysterious division, continuing to tease answers after the bombshell reveal of the Timeless Children. That finale had introduced the idea that the Doctor was found as a child underneath a mysterious portal long in Gallifrey's past, revealing that the main character of the show was not just an ordinary Time Lord like we had initially thought, but instead the founder of the entire Time Lord Society, giving them her natural powers of regeneration. Regardless of how controversial this reveal was, it does create the potential for a lot of new stories and the exploration of her true origins. It's unlikely the show will do that now, since Chibnall has left and is being replaced by former showrunner Ross T. Davis, but on his way out, Chibnall really laid the groundwork for a fascinating opportunity for the show to have a big fresh start and change everything about itself forever. We're not just talking about new stories, we're talking about the textbook definition of a fresh start. Yes, it's the R word, reboot. In the penultimate episode of Series 13, Survivors of the Flux, the Doctor arrives on a Division spaceship piloted by her adoptive mother, Tecteun. It's here that we discover that the entire cataclysmic Flux event was created by Tecteun to destroy the universe and wipe the slate clean, with Division itself crossing into a new universe to start from fresh. This is an absolutely fascinating idea, the concept that inter-universe travel is actually possible by bridging the gap and entering an entirely new, untouched universe after destroying the last. Tecteun wanted to do this because the Doctor kept interfering with the so-called experiment, and this is where the foundation of a reboot comes into play. Tecteun attempts to convince the Doctor to come with her to this new universe, promising to restore her memories of her forgotten lives, even claiming that the other universe has the end of the portal the Doctor was found under, suggesting that the answers to her origins lay in this brand new frontier. As I said, this seems to indicate the perfect excuse for a reboot or relaunch of Doctor Who, giving the main character an entire new universe to explore, free from the baggage from the show's existing history. The Doctor could have travelled into this second universe and it would have been like a new beginning. Everything would be brand new, just like it was back in 1963, before the Daleks, before the Time Lords, before the Cybermen, and all those existing elements of the show. But it's all well and good putting that on paper. Would it have even been a good idea?
And there, beyond Division, the next universe and the next beyond that. Multiverses.
Doctor Who is no stranger to the idea of other universes. Even in the classic show itself, we've seen the parallel universe of Inferno, which saw Britain ruled by fascists. And in the modern show, there's the so-called Pete's World, where the entire history of planet Earth was different, including Rose Tyler's father Pete never having died. It was a fascinating universe with lots of cool differences, but expanded media has really run with the idea of other universes entirely. The Unbound series of Big Finish audios introduced us to entire different Doctors existing within their own universes, acting as kind of a what-if series exploring concepts like the Doctor not leaving Gallifrey, the Fourth Doctor actually destroying the Daleks in Genesis, or the most far-fetched idea of them all, the Doctor being a woman. God forbid. Multiverses might be all the rage these days in things like superhero movies, but Doctor Who has that very established history of them already. There are nearly infinite parallel universes splitting off from nearly every single decision any character makes. Rose goes to the chip shop and doesn't pick up one of those little wooden fork things, whole new parallel universe. Of course, Doctor Who has established that travelling between these universes is very difficult, although there are things like the Gateway, which we see in Warrior's Gate, allowing for travel between End Space, the main universe, and E Space, a smaller parallel universe. However, as I mentioned, these are all parallel or negative universes. They're all based upon the main universe as we know it, with more similarities than differences. What Survivors of the Flux teases, on the other hand, is a completely different, separate universe, and that's what makes it so unique and interesting.
So here we are, outside one universe, on the cusp of many more.
Naturally, the mere idea of completely resetting Doctor Who's universe is outrageous, and it feels sacrilegious to even suggest. I mean, just look at what happened on Twitter when I just proposed the possibility of a reboot. After all, Doctor Who is an incredible show with a rich history, with so many wonders and loads of epic tales, but it's undeniable that over its 60-year history it has gained a lot of baggage. There are so many aliens and planets to keep track of, and loads of characters hanging about all over the place, including, a bunch of immortals off on their own travels. As a fictional universe, it has become pretty crowded, and it could benefit from a reset of sorts. That completely clean slate allowing us to see everything for the very first time, alongside the Doctor, who is also in unknown territory. It would be the perfect foundation for a reboot that still maintains a sense of continuity to the existing show.
The next universe holds the other end of the wormhole where I found you.
It wouldn't erase the history of the character or any of their adventures, it would just be like turning the page to a new canvas full of fresh opportunities. And as I mentioned, it would give us the chance to explore the Doctor's secret history, the chance to discover their true people and find out how and why they ended up in our universe. It's a storyline that could still parallel the character's rejection of the Time Lords throughout the show, because the Doctor could find their original race and then eventually decide they don't belong there either, once again becoming their very own person and keeping their sense of identity as just a normal traveller, rather than being some kind of messiah or chosen one. And of course, Survivors of the Flux also suggests the idea of carrying over some parts of the old universe into the new. Tectone mentions the spaceship being a so-called seed vault full of genetic traces she wants to import into the second universe as a way of preserving the old one.
My seed vault. Genetic traces from the previous universe to import into the next.
This implies that some species like humanity, Daleks, and maybe even Time Lords, among many others, might be able to be born again in the new universe, growing from these genetic traces to maintain a sense of normality and familiarity to what we're used to. And of course, because of parallel evolution, I'm sure the Cybermen would show up again in some form. However, bringing all those iconic villains back could kind of defeat the point of a reboot like this, but at least they'd be able to take new forms or gain new character traits without diminishing the value of their predecessors from the main Doctor universe. It would also give us a chance to meet new big-time villains who operate under different laws of physics. After all, we only know the physics that apply to our universe and the ones that define our own existence. We've already kind of seen these kinds of monsters and creatures in Doctor Who media before, beings who don't align with the laws of our own universe or dimension. So there's a precedent for things being very different depending on the universe an alien race is from, and it would be a good thing to explore if Doctor Who did shift its main setting to this second, brand new and unexplored universe.
Think of the discoveries that would await us both there.
And hey look, I can already tell what you're thinking. A big Doctor Who reboot like this would be catastrophic, it would change too much. And yeah, I do kind of agree with you. This isn't like a superhero comic where you have a billion different universes you can constantly change things up with. Doctor Who's universe has grown and been established over the course of 60 years. That's over half a century. I know, quick basic maths there. That's a lot of stuff to just throw away for the sake of changing things up. One of the biggest strengths of the show is how it can already refresh itself and clean the slate regularly by changing things like the lead character, the TARDIS, and side characters, so it can always serve as a jumping on point even 60 years on. If there's any media franchise that doesn't need a complete overhaul, it's Doctor Who. Doctor Who has the complete timeline and geography of an entire universe to play with. And if you've ever played No Man's Sky for even like half a day, you'll know how big a single galaxy feels to explore, let alone an entire universe full of like 2 trillion galaxies. Unlike other science fiction media, Doctor Who pretty much has an infinite source of endless planets, civilizations and events to draw upon. It literally cannot run out of these concepts because it spans such a big universe. There's no need for us to cross over into a new universe to reset the show's baggage, because it's already been able to do that. Series 11 made the brave decision to simply ignore existing components of the franchise. There were no returning aliens or characters from the 10 series before, or even, the 26 seasons before that. It styled itself as a complete fresh start, and it didn't need a whole brand new fresh universe to do that. There's also the fact that transitioning into a new universe would be a bit of a PR nightmare, because it would most likely get more blowback than even things like The Timeless Child did. It would also lose a lot of its relatability factor, no longer having the familiar setting of Earth, which would be a pretty bad thing because a big part of the show's success has been how it tethers itself to the planet we ourselves live on, leading to iconic visuals like Daleks on Westminster Bridge and Cybermen outside St Paul's Cathedral. Sure, a good writer can make you care about the planet Zogdal Prime, but there's something special and unique about how intrinsically tied Doctor Who is to our own world. Uprooting the setting to a completely new universe without Earth would definitely do a lot more harm when it comes to this idea of familiarity and relevance the property has built up over such a long period of time. And I mentioned earlier about Doctor Who having a lot of baggage it might be helpful to shed, but that strong sense of continuity is also a big bonus of the show. This idea of a living, breathing universe with recurring background monsters and the occasional existing character propping up here and there. Sure, you could eventually reach that point again with a new universe, but it would take a long time and fans might not stick around to reap the rewards of such a direction. So it's hard to see the long-term benefits of such a drastic change to the entire structure of the show's universe, rejecting pretty much everything that has actually made the show so successful.
Come with us into the next universe, into the beyond. Help me build.
So I think it's safe to say that a complete Doctor Who reboot taking place in a whole new universe is a bad idea on pretty much every front, but I still find the new universe idea a fascinating concept the show just kind of glossed over. It could have been a great idea to just strand the Doctor on here for a series, similar to the so-called E-Space trilogy of season 18, where the 4th Doctor and Romana found themselves stuck in the E-Space universe and had to find their way out the hard way. If Flux hadn't been Whittaker's final series, it could have been really interesting to give her a similar story, or even throw the new Doctor into the deep end in a mysterious new universe just for a little bit.
That universe may be where you're from, where you began.
They wouldn't know where anything is, they wouldn't know what to expect and how to escape. Along the way, the Doctor would battle all these strange new creatures on impossible worlds, and the writers could really go wild with the most bizarre and out there concepts they could ever think of. Like, stuff like Scherzo and Zagreus could just be in the show because it's the universe that we don't know how it works. And then, as I suggested earlier, the Doctor could finally meet their own people, potentially getting some answers to their origins, and then they can escape back into our universe and everything would be back to normal. All the continuity intact, but with that added wrinkle of having seen what things are like in an entirely unique, separate universe without the Doctor. You wouldn't lose anything of consequence, and instead I feel like you'd gain all sorts of new villains, settings and characters to explore in expanded media. There's infinite potential there, and it would be a fantastic framing device for a series, or at least a multi-part story pushing the boundaries of what the show can do. Sci-fi exploration has always been one of my favourite things. Whenever I'd played Battlefront 2 growing up, I'd always try and explore out of bounds just to see what was out there. And I still wonder about things like the unknown regions or the other galaxies in Star Wars. There's so much out there to explore, so it's hard not to feel excited about the idea of a whole new universe for Doctor Who to play around with, but it should never be used as an excuse to completely reboot the show, because Doctor Who isn't a show that ever needs a true reboot. Sure, you get soft reboots like we saw of New Who, but a complete reboot is undoubtedly a terrible idea that would completely sink the show by removing everything that has ever made it successful over its long history. Although that being said, maybe, each country could make their own version of Doctor Who, that could be fun. But hell, just look at the reboot plans during the production of the 1996 movie. That would have just had worse remakes of existing stories and ultimately just, kind of ruined the show. However, the idea of a new universe itself is still tantalising, something the show could have still explored without threatening the existing continuity and integrity of the franchise as a whole. As I already mentioned, it could have been a really strong gimmick for just a series or a single story, because this isn't a parallel universe or a pocket universe like we've already seen. This is a completely unique and separate universe with so many more possibilities. movies. There'd be no Time Lords, no Daleks, no Cybermen, you get the gist. Everything would be completely new and unprecedented, so the writers could really let themselves loose with stories and ideas. It would be a universe ripe for exploration, which makes it a shame that Flux dangled the idea in front of us and even literally showed us a visual of it, only to then just kind of forget about it and never even mention it again. To answer the question from the start of this video, yes, Doctor Who missed a big opportunity with this universe, but no, it doesn't mean that there should be a reboot. And with that, that's all for today's video. I know it was a bit more rambly than usual, but I'm working on bigger projects for November, so I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye. And I'd just like to thank my Asbantium level patrons, Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson, my Diamond level patrons, Glenna Clark and Valter, my Platinum level patrons, Maximilian Foreman and Nix Games, and all my Gold level patrons, Boots, Daniel Shillito, Franz Horn aka Line Vortex, Robert Hock, and Tom Azar. Thank you so much for your support.